Getting ready for TOEFL requires a lot of effort. But if you think you have a decent level of English, good learning and time management skills, and if you think you can be well organized, then you can start preparing without any doubts whatsoever. Do you have to take TOEFL in a month or so? Okay, no problem. Don't panic because I have compiled a list of things you need to do to get a really nice high score on TOEFL. So first of all, what does it mean to score over 100? Well, first of all, the total score is 120 for 4 sections, which means if you do the math, thank God math is not a part of TOEFL because God, I wouldn't stand a chance, but I can do this one. It's 30 points per section. Each section or skill, reading, listening, speaking, and writing, has, 4 or 5 proficiency levels, and based on your score, where it falls, you can sort of determine the range of your proficiency in that specific skill. So if you look at this right now, this breakdown on the screen, right, you can see that each skill has different level ranges. So to get 100, you need more or less advanced skills in each section. Good news is it's possible. Even if you are intermediate level now, you can do it. It's all about dedication, practice, and somewhat of a strategic approach. And that's what we're gonna talk about now. Number 1, of course, it goes without saying that you need to get familiar with the way the test works, right? The format and everything that it includes. For example, TOEFL IBT consists of 4 parts: reading, listening, speaking, writing, that appear in that specific order. The test duration is, about 3 hours if you don't do a speed run like me last time. And the assessment format and the criteria for actual, scoring processes are listed in detail on the official website. So you can visit www.ets.org/TOEFL/test takers and, all of that stuff. And be sure to go to the section for each part of the exam and watch the video with comments and grading criteria, right? As test takers, we need to know what they're looking for, because if we know what they're looking for, we can prepare and give it to them. Makes sense so far, doesn't it? All right, moving on. Of course, it's always a good idea to, take a mock test or a, prep exam in that specific format so that you can determine your starting point and also, start thinking about your strengths and weaknesses. It never hurts to take a little diagnostic test to, figure out which sections, which parts, and which question types you tend to struggle with the most so that you can double down on those and turn your weaknesses into your strengths. And then, of course, in terms of speaking and writing parts, you can take anything else that's, even remotely similar, or you can just study a lot of high scoring answers and all of those examples. That would be very useful. And there are a lot of TOEFL practice resources out there on the internet, as well as the official ets.org website. And no matter what you do, I always recommend to go back to the ets.org website and do a whole bunch of stuff there as much as you can, because it's kind of like a weird little unspoken secret that those official practice tests, you can actually get some of those questions in your actual test. It's possible. And from there, of course, you will analyze your results and see where you kind of fall short and see what you're missing so that you can go and get that, right? And of course, all of your strengths, you got to keep practicing them too, so that, you stay in shape. The next one is, of course, it's a test, right? It's not necessarily, it's pretty close, but it's still not a real simulation of, a real life situation, or it's not a realistic assessment of the full scope of your English skills, right? It's a test. And of course, being that it's a test, obviously has its limitations. And the main one is there's a specific layout and format and specific types of questions that test very specific skills, and those will always be there. So there are strategies that you can use to succeed and sort of get around those little, areas where you could struggle potentially. Each question, each task, and each section has strategies that you can utilize to get a really high score. And where can I find those strategies for scoring really high, you ask? Well, the answer is in my brand new course, How to Score Over 100 on TOEFL Without Trying Too Hard. In this course, I guide you through everything you need to know to score very well. We take a very close look at all of the sections, parts, question types, and tasks so that we can understand them, get to know the enemy before we go into battle. And with those question types, we also talk about ways to complete those tasks and, different techniques you can use to make it as easy as possible for yourself, but also deliver a very good answer that they are looking for. Along the way, you will also master all of the necessary skills you need in order to get a high score. Of course, you will have different assignments and tasks so that you don't just listen to my voice the whole time and look at my face the whole time. But if you are into that, I am also doing some of those tasks real time with you in this course and explaining why or how I am doing them to get a high score. You will also get a lot of printable handouts so you can study on your own. For example, the must-know TOEFL vocabulary is a great one. And that's not everything you get with this course. There is much, much more. So if you want to learn more, if you want to prepare and score high, check out the link in the description box down below, because we also give you templates and, ready to use expressions for speaking and writing sections. So you know what to do. Now, the next step is, after studying all of the techniques and strategies and approaches, take the mock test again to see how you are improving, making progress, and see what else you got to do from here. Also, it never hurts, because the more of those mock tests you do, the more familiar you get with just the test format, the flow, the layout, and the specific topics that are covered, on the test, like biology, marketing, history, art, all of that stuff. So practice, practice, practice. Take as many of them as you can, because like I've mentioned before, the reading part is incredibly boring. During the listening part, you're already tired and bored out of your mind. Speaking, you kind of come alive, maybe because you're nervous, maybe because it's a little change of pace and it's nice. Either way, it's tough. Not only is it tough on you as an English learner, it's really tough on you as a human being, like mentally. So you need to build up that muscle of taking this test over and over again, so that when you do it for real, hopefully you can only take it once and get the desired score. And of course, during all of this, don't forget about your actual regular outside of TOEFL English skills. I cannot stress that enough. It's very important, right? Continue exploring vocabulary. Maybe just for the time being, focus on vocabulary that could be useful to taking TOEFL, like academic vocabulary and, something related to those, classes like, psychology and history, art, biology, whatever the case may be. Of course, don't forget to practice grammar, right? Grammar is not directly tested. There's no grammar section on the actual exam, but obviously it's all throughout the whole thing, especially speaking and writing parts where you have to generate language. And of course, just make sure you are an open-minded learner, which means don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone and maybe, like I said before, reading Harry Potter is nice. I love Harry Potter, but you're not gonna get tested on that. Instead, you will read something very boring, unless you're into it. If you're into it, then you have no problems. But, if you're like me and you are not super interested in biology or, types of butterflies or whatever, or birds, then you should probably try to read about it before you take the test and the entire time while you're preparing, just because you need to get used to reading about that stuff. Otherwise, you might just get lost. And I have some recommendations for all of those things. So, first of all, what should you start with in terms of preparation materials? Of course, ETS official approved materials are always a safe bet. Obviously, It's going to be the closest thing to what you have to do. So make sure you get familiar with that stuff. Of course, English learning, websites are great as well, right? And you can use those online platforms that offer comprehensive TOEFL prep materials, such as Magoosh TOEFL blog, and it's a very popular online test preparation platform. And of course, there's also Exam English, and they provide free TOEFL practice tests that, simulate the real exam, and they do a very good job of that. Of course, in terms of books, if you're old school like myself and you like books, they don't have to be paper, but if you do like books, there's the official guide to the TOEFL test by ETS, right? If it's by ETS, it's the real deal. And of course, there's Barron's TOEFL IBT by Pamela Sharp. And this book is pretty great. It's a very popular series of books, and the content is great, practice tests are great, study tips are top tier. Now, what should you read? Well, that's a great question, right? During the exam, you will encounter many, possibly unfamiliar topics, and don't freak out. It's completely fine. You just got to get familiar with this academic environment and the vibe. So here's what you need. Read something of that nature consistently, as much as possible. If you can do it every day, do it every day. Of course you can do it every day. You just don't want to, but you kind of have to. So do it every day. And you can watch, I'm going to link my video, and you can just watch that and get those resources. What should you listen to? That's a great question. Well, those campus conversations are pretty informal and pretty casual, which is great for us. Lectures, they're about art, science, social science, whatever, right? So make sure you listen to something that relates to those topics so that, once again, you get familiar and you get used to hearing about it. Because, if you take TOEFL blind, completely blind, you will get thrown off. It's crazy. And if you've never studied in America, you will get confused. So, in order to make sure you don't get confused, listen to, for example, you can listen to TED Radio Hour or VOA Learning English, right? And these podcasts, they come with transcripts as well, which is very, very useful. And they explore a lot of different topics, and you can find something that I'm sure will be interesting to you, as well as useful for TOEFL prep. If you want to listen to stuff about space, outer space exploration, you can tune into Are We There Yet? That's a great one. And if you want a podcast with exercises to test your, comprehension skills with transcripts and, vocabulary explanations, you can tune into English Club podcasts. And that's a great one. And of course, how to improve speaking. Well, first of all, go on the official website and check out the criteria, right? They will break down everything they want from you. So, like I said, all you got to do is make sure you deliver that. Next, of course, you want to keep your answers structured and well-structured and to the point. So templates really help, right? I give out a lot of different templates in my course as well because, I think those are the best way to do it. Because who on earth expresses their opinion or tells a story or recaps something in like 45 to 60 seconds? That's, no, no one. And then with those templates, you will practice a lot so that you can drill them and they are just a part of you. Now, check this out, right? Let's just see how you would answer this question, right? Read the question and think about how you would answer, right? Teachers should assign daily homework to students. Do you agree or disagree? And then explain your reasons using specific details in your argument. Details, plural. So reasons, plural. So make sure you have two. So there you go. Think about it. And you have to think fast. First, determine your stance. Should they or should they not? Let's say they should. You need two reasons why with personal examples. Those personal examples can be fake. Don't worry, right? So I'm going to say, yes, Because number one, in middle school, my teacher, Mrs. Johnson, she assigned us daily homework every single time in my physics class, and that was the only class that I did very well at. That's number one. And number two, because as a teacher myself, I can see how my students are improving. If I assign them daily homework or if I skip a day, the progress stalls. I just pulled that out of thin air. I never assigned homework. And I did not have Mrs. Johnson or whatever name I said. I just pulled that out of nothing, out of thin air. And you kind of have to do the same, right? And you also want to make sure you pick a really strong stance, because a strong stance, even if it's not your own, will give you more to talk about, right? I didn't think about it this time because I was trying to, give you an example. But, if you do believe that they should assign homework, say no, because it's always fun to explore the opposite side, and there's more you can think of faster. No, because as a student, I'm taking a lot of classes and I need more time. I don't want to do homework for everything all the time, right? And number two is because as a student, I need a part-time job so I can pay for school, and I don't have time. I need time to work, right? None of those things are true, but I was able to think of them really fast because it's a fun, strong opinion. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna, obviously I'm gonna talk about it later when I do a separate video on the speaking section and how I scored 30 out of 30 in the speaking section. But that's kind of a really good example of how to tackle speaking question 1. Now you can go ahead and watch the example in the video that I'm gonna link down below to improve your answer. And of course, you gotta practice every day, because it's a very weird thing to think for a few seconds and speak for a few seconds. It's extremely weird. So obviously you need to get used to doing that. So you can get used to the timer, you can feel and sense, and you have a really good idea before you even start talking or before you even start preparing to talk. I'm gonna say this, this, and that, and it'll be about 60 seconds, right? It'll be about 45 seconds, whatever the case may be, right? You wanna make sure you get a really good feel for the time. And of course, my course has a lot of different speaking prompts and templates and, a variety of practice questions. I also actually break down every single speaking question and show you a high scoring answer and explain why and how you can make your answers like that too. I think that's very, very valuable. You don't need to Google anything. Everything is already there in my course. The link, once again, is down below in the description box. And unfortunately for speaking, you have to do, a bit of self-assessment, but don't worry, it's pretty easy to do. So first, you want to make sure you fully answer the question. If the question is, which one do you prefer? You have to state which one it is, right? And you have only spoken about the topic or about things that are relevant to the topic. In middle school, my physics teacher, Mrs. Johnson, she was a single mother of 4, and it was irrelevant, right? Don't go on tangents. Of course, your ideas are fully developed and the relationships between them are solid, right? Again, don't go on tangents. That's what that means. And of course, each idea contains a specific example or reason from your experience, and that's relevant to question type 1 for speaking. And of course, you've used the time effectively. You didn't speak too much and get cut off, and you also didn't speak way too little and just sat there silent. You can also self-assess your delivery, speaking in a calm, confident, clear, natural manner, right? Not speaking too fast, too slow, too loud, or too quietly. Make sure you're just a normal person. Make sure you don't pause too often. Pauses are natural when you are developing your ideas and getting ready to, get them out, but not too long and not too often. For example, you use pauses and certain intonations to mark transitions, which is very important. And of course, your pronunciation is clear, and the people who assess can understand what you're saying, right? You know how you get on the plane, and when the pilot starts talking, it sounds like the microphone is actually inside of their mouth, right? You don't want to do that. You want to make sure everything is clear. And of course, language use, right? There are no major mistakes like subject-verb agreement and, all of that very important fundamental stuff. You used at least some somewhat complex grammar structures, right? Like adverbial phrases and adjective noun clauses and, conditional sentences. You have used words correctly, right? So if you're pulling a word out and you're not exactly sure what it means, you could be in trouble. That's danger zone, so don't do that. You have used some advanced vocabulary, right? Instead of fired, you can say, let go. That's not really advanced, but, it's not as typical to say, right? Or laid off or something like that, right? Instead of, I don't know, she quit, you can say she resigned, stuff like that, right? Not super difficult, not super basic, but slightly elevated language. And of course, how to improve writing. First of all, you need to be familiar with just essay format or essay style writing. Have that structure of introduction, body, and conclusion, and really master, transitioning between those different parts seamlessly. So just pick a TOEFL topic for writing and set a timer, 30 minutes, and then just write nonstop without any spell checks or using translators. Just do your best with what you have, because that way you can assess what you're lacking, you can go get that, and then you can bring it over and you can kill it. Sounds easy, and it kind of is, but obviously not really. Then you can run your text through, a checker, like Grammarly.com or whatever, to see if there are any grammatical or, punctuation errors and stuff like that. And that'll be very helpful. You can also learn a lot. There's also Oxford Text Checker, right? Which allows you to find out the level of vocabulary you used in the text. And the final touch, of course, you can elevate the quality of the answer using this self-test checklist. So let's go. Number one, of course, you were done before the 30-minute timer went off, obviously, of course, right? And you also had time to proofread your answer. That's a good sort of guideline here. Of course, your writing is structured and it's easy to follow, and you're not jumping back and forth between different things, and everything just flows nicely. Of course, you fully answered the question that they asked you. That's also important, with detailed examples, reasons, and explanations to support your ideas. Also, make sure you're not going on tangents again, and you are sticking to only what's relevant to answer the question they are asking. The next one is you didn't write the same thing over again. You didn't repeat yourself, right? Don't be redundant. Just keep it straight to the point. Don't repeat yourself. They read it once is enough. Of course, it's structured in a way that everything is separated into paragraphs, and logically it makes sense. You used some transitional words and expressions, of course, to make sure those different parts are flowing smoothly one into the other. And of course, you are not making major mistakes. You're using nice grammar structures, conditional sentences, again, different clauses. All of that stuff is great. You're using, slightly elevated vocabulary, advanced vocabulary, and you're using the words correctly as well. And this is basically all you need to know to succeed and kill it. So with that being said, go ahead, practice some more, and let me know in the comments what you want to see next. This has been Ben Yapak, your TOEFL prep buddy, and I'm going to stick around here, and we're going to make sure this process is nice, enjoyable, stress-free, and you are actually excited about what you're doing. And when you get those test scores, you see a nice, pleasant little number. Not little, big number. Big, really big number. All right, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.